for the life, the leadership, and the legacy of one of South Carolina's greatest citizens, my family, my friend, my mentor, a champion of justice throughout this nation, someone who has received the Presidential Medal of Freedom, someone who went on global soil and brought home citizens in 1990 from the Iraq and Kuwait war. Someone who taught us as little boys that, they call you nobody, but you can show them that you're somebody. Someone who showed us a servant's heart of how to treat the least of these and said to young boys and girls in Greenville, South Carolina, that your zip code does not define who you are. Someone who Martin Luther King, Dr. King, recognized his leadership and his talents and brought him on as a student. I'm talking about none other than Reverend Jesse Louis Jackson, Sr. Jesse Louis Jackson, Jr. was just here in our state a few days ago. And his father, Jesse Louis Sr., a civil rights icon in South Carolina and in this nation, a global humanitarian in South Carolina and in our nation, a political trailblazer that ran for president not once but twice, whose shoulders we stand on, that gave those with no money an opportunity for education, that gave those with no money an understanding of entrepreneurship and economics, a student of the civil rights movement. And so I ask that you join me and join this nation and join our governor in recognizing and paying homage to the life, leadership, and legacy of the Reverend Jesse Louis Jackson, Sr. Thank you. Mr. President.
Senator from Richland would like to be recognized.
I'll yield and allow Senator Jackson to.
Yeah. And then Senator Jackson is recognized.
Thank you, Mr. President and members of the Senate. Thank you to my friend and colleague, Senator from Greenville. Members of this Senate, I would not be where I am if it had not been for Jesse Jackson. He is a family friend. My dad and Reverend Jackson were very, very close. I was a student at Benedict College, and Reverend Jackson came to campus and recruited me to run for student government president. As a matter of fact, he called my dad, called my uncle, and the conversation went like, tell Darryl he is running for student body president. And I ran and I won. In 1984, I had the privilege of being one of, if not the youngest staff member on Jesse Jackson's 1984 presidential campaign, and went to San Francisco with Reverend Jackson when he gave that great speech, I Am Somebody and Keep Hope Alive. Just recently, in 2020, Reverend Jackson was here in Columbia and spoke at the church that I pastor, and he was our guest speaker. And following that, he did something that I didn't realize the significance of it. He asked me to get my sons and at the time, my granddaughter. And he said he wanted to take a picture with them in front of my father's picture. And he said to them then, he says, legacy carries on things that are important. He looked my two sons in the eye, and he said, just remember that you are always somebody. And so I would say this, that the lasting legacy of Reverend Jackson, I woke up this morning and my son had already texted me, Dad, Reverend Jackson died, and he shared the picture, and we were together. And I'll leave you with this. I remember in 1984 being just a young man flying to San Francisco, standing on that floor with Reverend Jesse Jackson, with the Speaker of the House, Speaker Brown from California, who was Reverend Jackson's friend. And there was a reception afterwards. There was an age limit. If you know anything about Speaker Brown, you understand why there could have been an age limit for that. And we were going, and I was just going back as a young man to my room, and Reverend Jackson called the late Dr. Walker Solomon, the late Kevin Gray, and he says, I need you to go get Darryl because I need you to bring him here. I need to introduce him to some political figures in California who are legislators. And I didn't know it, and he looked at them and he looked at me, and he said, son, one day you can do what they are doing. Just keep hope alive and remember that you will always be somebody. So I salute my friend, my mentor, a great leader, great humanitarian, the Reverend Jesse L. Jackson.
Senator from Greenville. Oh, I'm sorry, Senator from Williamsburg.
Thank you, Mr. President. Thank you, Senator from Greenville. I was actually wondering at what moment you would lead us in this opportunity to pay homage to Reverend Jackson on the Senate floor. My story is a wee bit different. When I was in college, you look to people in the nation who are leading as you're considering fraternities. And when I looked around, there were great men that were involved in all of them. It's all about service and leadership and scholarship and uplift and manhood and all of those kinds of principles. And so there was Vernon Jordan, who was the either executive director or the president of the Urban League. And then there was Jesse Jackson with PUSH, and then there was Benjamin Hooks with NAACP. And so I decided I would pledge Omega Psi Phi fraternity like Reverend Jackson. And so not knowing that this little boy from Greenville, South Carolina, would at some point find himself in the company of Reverend Jackson, Bill Clinton, Janet Reno, and Jim Clyburn, because we had a church burning in Greenville, and President Clinton came to speak, and I got the opportunity to meet Reverend Jackson. And like Senator from Richland indicated, sometimes you don't appreciate some things that you witness. I later came to appreciate this moment, and some of you may or may not know, but oftentimes people look at folks that are darker complexion in a different way than they look at folks that are lighter complexion. And so I have a daughter who is my complexion. Then I had a niece who was living with me at the time who was darker in complexion. And we were in the church taking pictures, and Reverend Jackson was close to my niece. And he kept telling her how beautiful she was. He said at least 3 times to her that she was beautiful. And I think that he understood blackness and how you encourage folks of color to just know that they're beautiful and that there's somebody and that there's hope in their lives. And I would hasten to say that my story and the Senator from Richland's story is echoed throughout this nation because of the extraordinary man and the extraordinary leadership and example that he set for us all. And so I woke up to a text this morning as well from one of my cousins in St. Louis, Missouri, alerting me to the news, and obviously saddened. But I got to meet Reverend Jackson on another occasion, and I'll tell this one and then I'll ease out. And so he was preaching, and I can't even remember where we were at this moment. But after he finished preaching, we all got a chance to shake his hands and talk to him. And so for whatever reason, he started telling me about preaching. And what he said was, I start off slow, and I walk them into it. And he says, I just keep building. And that's exactly what he did to us. And so he was a master preacher and just an extraordinary individual, and I'm proud to call him a fraternity brother.
Senator from Greenville, Senator Allen.
Thank you, Mr. President. Mr. President, because Jesse Louis Jackson, the country preacher, lived, there are so many in South Carolina, little boys and little girls that can live out Martin Luther King's dream and say, I have a dream. There are so many little boys and little girls in South Carolina that can look in the mirror now and say that I am somebody because of this native son. And I would just ask that we pay appropriate homage and rise for a moment of silence.
Senate will please rise for a moment of silence. Amen.
Mr. President,
Senator from Greenville, Senator Allen.
a unanimous consent request
State your request.
that at the next available time that we adjourn in memory of Jesse Louis Jackson Sr., this native son.
Without objection, on the next available day, we will adjourn in his memory. Senator from Orangeburg, what purpose you rise?
Unanimous consent request
State your request.
that the words of the three speakers just now be printed in the journal.
Is there objection? Hearing no objection, so ordered. Those words will be recorded in the journal.
Before we get started, I think most of us in here already knows that the passing of Reverend Jesse Jackson. And before we get started, Mr. Speaker, I would like for us to recognize the passing of Reverend Jesse Jackson and stand in honor of his passing for the things that he's done for the state of South Carolina and for the country.
All right, members and guests, please rise for a moment of silence for Reverend Jesse Jackson. Please bow your heads.
Mr. Speaker, I move today when we adjourn in the remembrance of the late, great Reverend Dr. Jesse Jackson. The son of the South is what we dubbed him. The Black Moses is what we know him. It's how we know him. It's a sad day around the country and around the world for everybody. So I move, and I also like everybody to stand in remembrance, a moment of silence in remembrance of the great Reverend Dr. I almost said that. Reverend Jesse Jackson.
All right, members and guests, please rise for a moment of silence for Reverend Jesse Jackson. Please bow your heads.